I do kind of hesitate to ask, but I'm also like really curious why you find the Sight and Sound list so annoying.
It's not that I find it annoying. I just find it somewhat pointless, I guess, is my I sat there and I looked at the list and I'm like, and everyone was getting all a titter and I was like, okay, I'm a movie cinephile, whatever you want to call us, nerd, what have you. And like, I'm looking at this list and I'm like, and I'm looking at it from like a populist standpoint. And I'm like, one, I think all of these films are fun. I think 100 is too many, but so my thought process of this list here is it's great. They're, some of these films people know, most of them they won't, but there's no context of why you should be watching these films. And I think that gets a lot lost in this conversation because and again, not that we have to cater to the lowest common denominator, not to say that someone who likes the movies that we're going to be talking about today are the lowest common denominators. Honestly, if you like movies at all, totally 100% on board with that. I'm glad you do. I'm glad you're watching. I'm glad you're participating in the art form. And that is absolutely sincere on my part. I begrudge no one for liking any movie that they like.
I mean, you like what you like.
Right. But like you take any average Joe Schmo off the street and show them Citizen Kane, they're going to be bored out of their fucking mind. And to be fair, I like Citizen Kane, but I also am not going back to it over and over and over again. I think in these cases that context, one, I think it's very interesting, the director's portion of it. I think individual directors, I'm very interested to know what Scorsese wants to watch or Tarantino wants to watch or all these guys, what do they, or all these women, these directors, what do they want to, what are the things that influence them and how they influence them. But I'm looking at a Sight and Sound list that it's full of 100 movies and most of them are not going to be films that are accessible or even available or people will even know why to seek them out. And so if you give someone Panther Pachali and then they don't have any idea why they should be watching that, it doesn't speak to anything to me. And so I was just sitting there, looking at it and I'm like, this is academic for academic's sake, and there's no value to anybody other than cinephiles, and it's just a masturbatory, exercise. No offense to the people who participated.
No, I do think that this does speak to audience, and I think the audience for Sight and Sound or a Sight and Sound list or a BFI list of any kind are not the same. It's not the same audience who's going to go watch Top Gun Maverick a couple times.
Sure.
And I also think it's a list for the curious, for the sort of burgeoning cinephile. What should I watch? Oh, here's a list. I can sort of dive in wherever. I can start with the top 10 and then try to figure out why these are on the top 10. I mean, that's why I think it is.
So in that context, I think it'd be really, really interesting to say, here are the populist movies that you most likely like, the people in these, that are in the consciousness of right now, and not necessarily Top Gun Maverick, right? But I mean, you're talking about Pulp Fiction, you're talking about Parasite, are you talking about Get Out, which I know those two made the list, right? But to that extent of like, hey, if you like this, these are the things that influence this. And when you're watching this, look out for these things. Like, look at the cinematography here, look at the dialogue here, look at this particular set piece here. Not that everything has to be a study per se, but as we get further and further along where we are just consuming content, and you and I have had this conversation off mic before about this kind of, and again, I'm not one to say that, movies of a particular time and place are better or worse, or we're seeing a dumbing down of art in general. I mean, there's always been pop art. There's always been pop music, bubblegum shit. There's always been, again, stuff that drive people in the seats. I don't think that there's a degradation necessarily, but there might be now that we have organizations that are just trying to put out content. We've had this conversation before where it's like take Knives Out and Glass Onion, for example. There's not an urgency, and not that I think that box office draw is the end all be all and the thing that the barometer in which we should measure all of these films. But there's not an urgency to make back your $100 million budget, if you are making Glass Onion and you are lazy about it, which And again, I know that film is well reviewed. I think it is a piece of garbage. And again, I guess piece of garbage is probably too strong. But I mean, in regards to where Knives Out came from, no, it fucking sucked. It was terrible. And we can get into why I fucking hated it.
No, I don't want to.
And I didn't, again, maybe because I found myself laughing at certain points. And then I found myself just like thinking about it afterwards, thinking how lazy and how boring it actually was. And how, the writing was completely subpar below what Rian Johnson's done in the past. And again, if that's happening to him, a filmmaker that I actually like, then, and obviously it's happening to when you put together things like the Will Ferrell, Ryan Reynolds Spirited movie on Apple Plus, it's this level of, where we flip the script where there's prestige TV now, and like you get to the point where now movies are just like this middle of the road generic horse shit, which is what I think we're having a lot in these produced content movies for streaming channels that don't care about, they care about eyes. They care about who's watching and how many people watch it and how many hours are being watched. They do not give a shit if you like it. They just give a shit if you're watching their system. And that sucks. And if it's happening to someone like Rian Johnson, that's a danger that we should all be aware of. So to that end, if we're just generating bullshit, then there is a genuine need to go back and look at what was good and what came before it. And you have an audience that will realize that they're being fed gruel and that there is steak that can be seen in the past. Give them a reason to go back and watch the steak rather than just suck up the gruel. And I think that to that end, it would be really, really interesting to have showing all the directors that voted, giving them the top 25, and then saying, here's why you want to watch it. And giving it from an auteur's perspective, a respected director's perspective to say, hey, when you're watching, Vertigo, and again, that's a pretty accessible film. I know it's like number 2 or number 3, whatever it was. Here's what you should be. Enjoy it. First and foremost, enjoy this film. We hope you enjoy it. But also, if you get caught up and you feel like, why am I watching this? Well, here's some reasons why. Because people love that trivial shit anyway. People will go in and stick around to understand. So, I mean, if you carry them from the trivia to why certain scenes matter, what Hitchcock was doing, certain angles that Hitchcock was filming from, how he framed scenes. So these people start to pay attention to the art. There's no harm in that. There's no harm to take a deeper look or deeper analysis at why you certainly like things. And then that will permeate and allow you to understand why you don't want to see something like Glass Onion, or why you should look beyond those types of movies. And again, you like Glass Onion, awesome, glad you did. But there are better constructed films out there, and here's how you start to pick those apart. It doesn't have to be everything some sort of snobbish experiment, or we have to you don't have to continually pick things apart. But I think, like I said, the sound thing, I think most people are going to look at that, especially if again, I understand that there's a certain audience for that's going to be excited for it. And everyone's going to go buy the Gene Dillman Criterion disc, and that's great. But half the time you're going to buy it and it's going to fucking sit on your shelf. You're not coming back to a 200-hour, 200.
Well, it's a 3-hour plus movie of static camera and a woman doing chores. But this goes back to your point of no one understands. Okay, not no one, right? But a lot of people. I think the people that we're sort of addressing right now would watch that movie or watch that film and go, I don't know why this is number one, and they wouldn't understand the idea of a minority character being a woman, right, in terms of minor or a minority in society, why her story is so important and how it's political without even trying to be, in your face political, and how the ending is fucking brilliant on so many levels. Yeah, they're not gonna watch it, but like you said, they're not gonna have that kind of idea of what makes this so great, because there isn't that explanation, there isn't that kind of analysis. And I think we're probably giving some of these directors and critics too much credit because they don't want to sit down and do that other narrative work. Right. Of adding to liner notes, right? And adding to, look, I gave you my list, and this is why I hate lists, because it's just like, look, I gave this thing 3 stars. I gave it 4 stars. That means it's great. But why? Well, look, just go see it because I gave it this rating. I hate rankings. I hate ratings. I hate lists, especially when it comes to art. It's so subjective to put anything above anything else. Someone could be like, no, Top Gun Maverick is my favorite film of the year, the film that I think is the best. I'm going to call bullshit on that, but that doesn't mean it's their top film, and that's kind of, again, what it comes down to is this: what do you like, right? What do you like, and why do you like it? That's what we don't teach people. I just did teach in quotes, but how to understand or how to explain why they didn't like something.
Right, and that's why I don't like when people are listening to this. I'm not going to.
Hi, welcome,
welcome to Why Does Wilhelm Scream? I hope you're listening for a little bit of insight behind it. And again, we're going to shit on things, and I hope that we convey why we're shitting on them and why we like things that we like. More so than just, and again, it won't necessarily be historical context per se, but it might be. Who knows? But
depending on the film, I mean, that's the other thing is that this idea of context applies not just to, and this goes back to the list too. That I think the list is very much of its time. It's a very 2022 list. A lot of women filmmakers. Probably more filmmakers of color, more contemporary filmmakers. So I think this is, and I think that's good because I think it's calling attention to things that have been traditionally kind of outside of the canon.
So maybe that's the reason. And I think maybe you and I probably share this opinion is that this framing of this is the 100 best films of all time is horseshit.
Complete bullshit.
In 2022, what we should be saying, here's 100 films that collectively we all believe you should watch.
Exactly.
And that you will get something out of. Because again, Get Out didn't become the 99th best film of all time, in some magical sense. It's a good film. You should absolutely watch it. Here's some things you should watch out for when you watch it. Again, and it's one of those things where I think, given context, I hope that it would allow you to enjoy the film more. If you start to understand why some certain, and again, because, and this is why, having a collective talk about it too allows people to see areas where they wouldn't have seen it before. Obviously, having a variety of voices speak about a film, say what it meant to them, and say why they enjoyed certain aspects of it, and what that's part of the narrative, and hopefully will either open up things and also possibly change your view to not like a film for whatever reason. I mean, again, or at least not necessarily not like a film. I would never want to influence someone to not like a film, but to also understand why someone might not like it. Because as movie nerds we get passionate and adamant about certain things. Again, this adamancy of like, I like this and this is pure genius and you've got to go along with fuck that.
No, that's ridiculous. But I think back to this idea of changing one's mind on a film. Look, when I saw Godfather Part 3, I was in grade school and I'm like, yeah, Michael Corleone. And it was great. Well, it's not really a good movie. I think some people have tried to sort of reclaim it and reframe it, but I don't think it's very good. And I haven't watched like the recut or anything. But this is what I mean. As I kind of grow, as I watch more and more, as I watch different types of films and see how different filmmakers do different things, my opinion, my sort of knowledge base grows and expands, and I can form different opinions on these movies that I used to once adore. Right. Because I was 12 or fucking whatever.
Right. Like we were talking about last night versus, vice versa and like father, like son, these body swap movies that were prevalent in like 88, 87. Yeah, I enjoy those movies. I haven't gone back to revisit them, but I remember distinctly watching them over and over again when they came out. And, so if you ask me, did I like those movies? Of course I like those movies. Now, would I like them now or I probably would because of nostalgia's sake. And then there's nothing wrong with that either. But again, understanding that's, not
understanding that's why you like it too.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah.
Because that's the danger. I'm not going to get into nostalgia and why it's bad and all of that. Okay. So look, in spite of our kind of combined distaste for lists, let's make our own list. A list of our five favorite of 2022.
Oh, 2022.
So because I want to do this exercise because we were just talking about it, right? So because here's the idea.
You should throw this on me out of the blue.
Yes, yeah. Okay. So I am springing this on Jason. We did not talk about this before. I'm
well played.
Thank you. I want honest subjectivity.
Tar?
Don't
wonder. Don't worry, darling. Glass onion.
So these are not like there's no particular order. Your five favorites. So it goes back to what you said. Here's 5 films I think you should see. 5 films that came out in the calendar year of 2022 that I think you should see.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Right. I already made my list.
Yeah, of course you did, fucker.
Yeah. And so whatever other criteria you want to develop there, and we'll just kind of run through them next time, just quickly. But I think...
Oh, so we're not doing this today?
No. Okay, we'll do it next time. Right. But I'm still springing this on.
All right, yeah. No, that's fine. That's fine. No, I can't. I was just like, now I'm like, I was sitting here like running through all the movies I've seen this year. Like, oh shit, I got to come up with 5 new movies that I've seen in 2022.
No.
Which I can name the bad ones. Absolutely.
Of course. Well, I've already forgotten most of those.
And see, that's the difference between you and me. I can't, like, the ones that the bad ones stick with me. The good ones, like, just
because you also will sit through every film. I will get up and leave. I'm like, this is garbage. I'm leaving.
Right. I've seen Falling for Christmas twice now.
Yeah. It took me 2 times to get through it. So this is a good segue. Today we are going to do a Christmas film grab bag. We have 5 films that we're going to talk about. So the aforementioned Falling for Christmas.
Here's the thing. I'm excited about talking about all of these. Even when I didn't like all of them, I'm excited about talking about all of them. And which is weird is the one I think that we both probably liked the most. We'll probably talk about the least.
Okay. So here's the 5 films. Falling for Christmas, Holiday in Handcuffs, Deadly Games, Black Christmas, Die Hard, and we have a wheel selector that we're going to spin.
All right,
and
we don't know. Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to talk about any of them. So let's look at that. You got actual sound effects. Bankrupts. Oh,
Die Hard is the first one.
Oh wow! All right.
Okay,
John McTiernan.
Do you want to start?
Are we going to give the plot synopsis of people who haven't seen Die Hard?
Do you want to give a real quick one?
Yeah, sure.
I mean,
a hard-scrabbled New York detective has his wife.
A New York City cop with a backlog of New York City scumbags.
He can't just get up and fucking leave because some woman wants him to. He can't follow his highly successful global business development in a multi-billion-dollar company across the country.
No.
He's got cases to solve. He's clearing out the docket of the last crimes that are unsolved in New York City. And once he's done that, sure, he's free to go.
There's only a couple.
But it's 6 months, he'll be done, he's out. So hard scrabble.
That's it. Yeah.
New York City detective. His wife has got a job out in LA, and they're kind of estranged at this point. They've been separated for a minute, not necessarily officially separated, but they're separated by the expanse of the United States. He's flying out to see his family for Christmas. And he gets to her Christmas party at the same time that some what we think are terrorists, but end up just being thieves, show up to steal $640 million in negotiable bearer bonds, whatever the fuck those are. And then, chaos ensues. He is in a bathroom when they take over the building, and he is a fly in their ointment. And then it just becomes a battle between 2 men, good versus evil. And we're going to see which one, and against all odds, does good win out or does evil take the day? It is the best action film, hands down, ever fucking made. You cannot convince me otherwise.
It's so good. It's so good. Well, and it's become a thing, right? Because you can pitch a movie and say, oh, it's Die Hard on a bus.
It's Die Hard
on a plane. It's Die Hard on a boat. I mean, that's the elevator pitch for, any number of movies now.
I mean, McTiernan at the time, and I looked up his filmography. He hasn't made anything since Basic with Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson. That was in 2003, I think. I'm not, if I'm making a mistake, maybe 2006. He only did 11 films.
Did he get blackballed, or did he do something?
So he got caught up in that weird
cocaine.
No, it was that FBI guy or whatever. He ended up like using him to find out dirt on somebody else, and that he ended up like being convicted and like sent to jail. But he's been up for jobs since then. But I don't know necessarily really what happened. I couldn't find anything. I didn't do extensive Google searching. I was just looking up his filmography to think, because that name carries weight with me. You're talking about Predator. And he took a huge hit with Last Action Hero, when that was kind of Schwarzenegger's first bomb, although it's been kind of, reclaimed as of, late. Really afterwards, it was really, people really liked it. And then, but it just did terribly. But like he was, you're talking about McTiernan, you talk about Jean de Bont, who's the cinematographer. You got and like a who's who of like 80s cast, and like because Willis at his height You've got coming out of nowhere. You've got
Alan Rickman. Alan Rickman. What's his face?
Yeah, I drew him like I was starting because I already had Atherton and Gleason in my head, like the two great '80s assholes of of the movie of the '80s. You know, they were assholes of the movies in '80s.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what else Rickman had done. He did Truly, Madly, Deeply.
Did he do that before this? I think this was his first film. Like he had done plays.
Oh,
like
really?
They saw him in Dangerous Liaisons on Broadway or like in the West End, and that was like, that's our Hans Gruber.
I mean, because I knew he did a bunch of stage stuff, so you're probably right.
And this was like he was actually afraid to take this role because he didn't want to be typecast in like as a German bad guy in action films or whatever. But
you're right.
What an entrance into American film.
That was 1990, so it was soon after that.
And then, of course, you've got Goodenough, who's amazing and like obviously didn't do nearly enough. My favorite role of his is, besides this one, obviously, is in the criminally underrated Money Pit.
Yeah,
that's such a great role.
You know his backstory.
Yeah. He was a defective. He defected from Russia. He's a ballet. He was like under British. He was
a principal dancer at Bolshoi, and then came over and worked under Baryshnikov at ABT as a principal dancer.
And his wife got stuck or couldn't come over.
Yeah, apparently she didn't want to stay.
Right.
I think there's kind of and they actually made like I think a TV movie about the whole thing.
Oh, really?
But yeah, she flew back and was like, I never wanted to like stay in America. He loves America, right? But and the guy like drank himself to death. So he left ABT after like falling out with Baryshnikov.
Right.
And then kind of toured with his own company for a while, but then started or did more acting. Yeah, died at 45, hepatitis from like chronic
shit break house too. I mean, just amazing like physique and like.
But the way he moves in this film, it's like he's a ballet. I mean, you know that he's trained in pantomime. The way he sort of turns and like exits the screen, I fucking love it.
He had a weird film career. Like he turned down a lot of stuff and like and then ended up being like he was a direct-to-video horror guy. He was in Waxworks movies and like Rune something. I forget exactly what the name of it was.
Because it was Witness and Money Pit and this, and then he was like, he didn't want to do these roles that got him typecast as either a dancer or a villain.
Right. But then he made a really terrible direct-to-video stuff. So I mean, it's just a weird set of choices. But yeah, I mean, it's like so. But I mean, like honestly, it's one of those things where like he will go down in history as one of the great villains of all time. Yeah. I mean, he's just so great in that role and so striking and so memorable that like I would love to have that on my resume of just being, even if it was the only film and I only did Keebler commercials for the rest of my life or whatever, that'd be cool.
Right. I like those cookies. I mean,
and it had Al Leong in it as well, who was like he's the Asian bad guy with the long hair,
just like Big Trouble Little China and all of those. Yeah.
And he's so great in that where he's like stealing the candy from the bar while he's waiting for somebody to come in.
The quarterback is toast.
That's the great part of that. So
it's so funny.
Like that, there's so many that movie wastes no time whatsoever. You dive right in. You get the backstory. You get the backstory that you need. It's perfect because the car ride over with Argyle, which one, kudos to putting in Christmas in Hollis. I mean, like that's the best Christmas movie or Christmas song of all time. Run DMC's Christmas Time in Hollis. And then you get the entire backstory as he's telling it to Argyle. He's sitting up front with Argyle kind of shooting the shit. And then that's it. And then you're in and then basically everything kicks off.
Yeah.
You got a nice little bit of nudity with the sex scene.
Oh, that's right, because they're like, getting busy in the office.
Right. You meet Takashi, you meet what's the guy's name?
Ellis.
Ellis, yes, thank you. You meet Ellis.
Just get a little cold.
You missed a bit. He's doing cocaine as his boss is coming in. He's in Holly's office. Now, of course, he goes up to Nakatomi Tower. He finds out that his wife has jettisoned his last name because she's with a Japanese company and wants to be a powerful woman. And so she's gone by Gennaro, Miss Gennaro. And they get into an argument and he goes to wash up in a bathroom. And at that point, that's when essentially, I mean, like really right on his tail, the terrorists / thieves show up to Nakatomi Tower and again, you don't really get any of their, like there's not a whole lot of motivation there other than the bearer bonds, and everything else is just really kind of exposition. I mean, it's just set up to go drive the plot, right? They're just there to steal, and you don't need anything else. They've got to drill through and open up a safe that's got 6 pylons that they've got to get through.
And in the 7th one, they have to have a miracle.
Right, they need a miracle. And then
have some faith, Theo. It's Christmas.
Theo is amazing in this. He's so like funny and great, and like all of the henchmen are perfectly European. And Willis, it's really a shame, and I understand why, but it's really a shame that his latter career has kind of devolved into. Now, I know he's been a prickly person for a while as well, but that his latter career has just been a paycheck gathering exercise because of his illness,
right?
And that he's just trying to build up. I mean, again, I say this because I don't necessarily know this is true, but it seems like this is a case where he's just taking roles and being fed lines to be in movies that are paying him money so that he can set up his family. Which kudos to him, that's great. But I mean, like it's unwatchable direct. I haven't even tried to be quite honest.
No, and it's just a shame that like, we don't get to see. I mean, a lot of these actors will sort of age into something different, and we don't get to see that with him. I mean, because before this film, I knew him from Moonlighting.
Right.
I mean,
which
almost
that's
so good.
Yeah.
That was so good. And then to see him in this and to see him play action hero, but also wise ass the entire time. It was
really,
great.
really
It was so good. And the balance was really well done. And it makes it infinitely rewatchable.
What's so crazy too is you got to think around that same time you had your muscular movie stars that were throwing out quips here and there, but they weren't, and they were funny and repeatable one-liners. But this was a guy who was really bringing a comedic performance. And yeah, he's well built in this role. I mean, he's not like he's muscular, but he's not like.
But he's not Stallone.
Right.
I mean, because Schwarzenegger's bigger, but he's not
right. He's not like he's a 6-pack abs and ridiculous pecs and things. He looks like an average day Joe, right?
He looks like a New York City cop who's after New York City scumbags.
Right. Oh, it was great. As he gets off the airplane, he's smoking immediately.
I know. Right. It's great. It's like such a. But again, like all of these, there are so many little things that tell us so much about his character. When he sits up front in the limo, when he sees the couple hugging in the airport, and he's like, California.
I love. I mean,
just like this disdain.
I love that dichotomy of like it's just like right? New York versus California. Like it's just 2 different worlds, right?
Because he is in some respect, it's a fish out of water movie.
Right. Sure,
I mean, it's a fish out of water movie. It's a stranger comes to town movie. It's a hero's journey film, and it's all this, but all those little things, right? The quips, the cigarettes. Why does he pause before he says cigarettes? I can tell they're European by cigarettes. I was watching it again this morning. I'm like, why does he do that? Why does he pause there? It gets me every time. But I think it's such a good character, and no one has to tell us anything. It's all through dialogue, action, what he looks like,
and the through line of not having a voiceover, but having another LA cop on the outside, where that plot device of allowing him to explain his story and give the backstory and give the depth to why he's, why he is who he is and where his family is and all of that. It's like, I don't think people realize when they're watching it, this is a perfectly constructed movie.
Yeah.
Because you sit there and it's 2 hours and change. You're sitting there, it is enthralling. It goes by in a blink of an eye.
It doesn't stop.
No. In fact, I was sitting there watching it. I was watching it late with Kat, and I had to I kept turning. I was like, "Fuck, this is gunshots the entire goddamn thing." Like, I can't.
Like, why is it so loud?
Everything's a gunshot in this thing.
Yeah, but it's nonstop, but it never feels gratuitous either. And the fact that it is stuck in this, I mean, really for the most part, stuck in this world of this giant building.
Yeah,
right.
De Bont would do it well with Speed. Like, I think Speed is a really, really good example of this. Speed is not nearly as good, but it is a good example of this type of Die Hard meets something else. All the rest of them probably are kind of crap. This one, I shouldn't say that because I'm not pulling all of them, but that being said, this one is.
I mean, Air Force One, Passenger 57, Passenger 57.
He's an absentee landlord. It's going to be our callback from here on out.
Come out to the coast.
Yeah, there's so much of that quippiness that is so, like, it was so inherent of his moonlighting role that was so well done. And again, just as such a weird, like, contrast. You did not see this type of guy in this type of movie, and it really just, I mean, propelled everyone to stardom. If I had any complaints before we get to Rickman, before I had any complaints, I think Bedelia's a little underused. I think she's really, really good in the thing. Like, go watch They Shoot Horses, Don't They? She's amazing. Like, she's amazing in almost all the shit that she does.
Yes.
And she's not bad in this. I just don't think she's given enough. I mean, and I like that they give her, like, the position of power in the family, and that, because she still has the emotional gravitas, but also she kind of owns a little bit over Bruce Willis as well. She kind of lords this over. It's like, where, you know, of course I'm successful. I'm making money. Like, why wouldn't you come out here and do this? You're just
Show him the watch.
Show him the watch. It's a Rolex. And I would say, I think the Gleason character is a little too spot on to be like, he's played a little bit too much for
laughs.
Right. And also just a buffoonery.
He's a clown.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I don't think you necessarily need, because he's not in there enough.
Right.
Like, I think you can come over there and give Sergeant Powell a dressing down, but I don't think you need him to be that. The whole line's about you. I get it, and it's one of those. It does become memorable. Like the whole line about, you know, we got people with glass all over them and things like that. I'm not sure how real
or breath mint.
How realistic that would be, like, in this kind of scenario. Yeah, and again, that's fine. This movie's not going for realism. That's fine. So I'm not going to say that. But I think that's again, very, very minor distractions of those two. And again, I like Paul Gleason and I like Bonnie Bedelia so much anyway, that really, it's not really that much of a big deal.
Right. Before you get on to Rickman, I wanted to note another line that I don't know if people catch, but it cracks me up every time. And that's when the FBI gets there and the agent says, "I'm Agent Johnson. This is Special Agent Johnson. No relation." One guy's black and the other guy is Italian. He's a character from Goonies. I remember him in Goonies, but it's just but it's said so, like, deadpan.
He doesn't even look back.
No, he doesn't.
It's just he's just
no
like,
relation,
because they're not even paying attention to Paul Gleason's character at all. No. What do you think about, before we get to Rickman, what do you think of Atherton's character? William Atherton, he's kind of the other bad guy. He's the bad guy in
he's the
Ghostbusters. He's a reporter here that goes after. He's also the professor. My favorite role of his is the professor in Real Genius. But yeah, he's the reporter that basically goes after and gets an interview with Bruce Willis and Bonnie Bedelia's kids, and kind of threatens to deport their housekeeper and their maid if he doesn't allow them to interview the kids.
I think he is great at being a prick. Yeah. In like everything he's in. Right. I mean, Ghostbusters. Yeah. Yes, Your Honor, it's true. This man has no dick. But no, I think he is meant to play a kind of sleazy true crime journalist. You know, not quite tabloid, but something close. What were those sort of news tabloid shows that were on after, like, local news?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
He was one of those guys, and there were a couple, on, and you always had this guy who was out there, like, trying to get people and trying to get, like, the most scandalous kind of scoop
camera in someone's face.
Right, trying to work them up so that something happens and you can catch something sensational. So. And I think he did that well. And I think that, I mean, look, he's another part that I think we remember really well about this film, because we're just like, what a sleazebag. I'm glad she punched him in the face, which plays, you know, in the second Die Hard as well. So
Right. Yeah. So let's get to the man of the hour, which makes this film so good is their interaction. And like, but I'm talking about Alan Rickman, of course. And of course, I think everyone who is a fan of movies is a fan of Alan Rickman. I don't think there's any detractors of what he does. It's like the interaction between the two of them, even when it's on the phone and they haven't seen each other, but particularly when they're together on screen, is so good. And you don't actually, like Rickman keeps his composure throughout the entire film until obviously when the Barry Bonds are flying out the window and he's holding on by a Rolex. It's fine. We get that one would.
It's a two-tone lady date.
Right. But that scene where he meets, and obviously it feels weird to be talking about a movie that everyone has seen like this, but that scene where he meets Bruce Willis and he has the name of the person pulled off the wall, and he goes so quickly into
Clay.
the
really
yeah.
bad American accent, but
like,
on purpose. But I mean,
right. But also, it's also William Clay, not Bill Clay. How fucking good is that?
Right.
Like, that's so. I mean, obviously, I know that was written into the script, but just that interaction and that bad American accent, and then like his delicious going back into the German to talk onto the walkie-talkie after Willis. He has the gun and he points the gun on Willis. I mean, my favorite line I know this is probably it's obviously well liked, but that you ask for a miracle and I give you the FBI. So good. So good.
It is.
I could listen to that that could be my ringtone. I love maybe one of my top 5 lines in any movie of all time.
And again, the way he talks to the CEO, the head guy, I forget his name. Takagi.
Okay. Yeah.
And they're in the elevator going up to like the conference room, and he looks at his suit, and I forget, nice suit. John Phillips.
It would be
I have
shame.
2 myself. Right? But it's that like I have 2 myself, and then later on he the callback to the suit. But just that I have 2 of those. I'm just like you. Right. I mean, kind of,
right.
But where he sort of holds himself in a hierarchy, I think is great. And then the line where who says to him, I think it's Takagi, or I forget who it is. I'm sorry. It's just like, oh, you're just a common thief. And he's like, I'm an exceptional thief.
Right. We'll be on a beach earning 20%. Those are good bearer bonds, I guess. I have no information or knowledge about bearer bonds.
They're called bearer bonds because you don't register them. So whoever holds them is the owner. Yeah, and the payment coupons are actually attached to the bonds themselves. So they're bonds like any like T-bonds or whatever.
I understand why you have the huge safe to hold them.
So the reason that they've gone out of fashion or they're not used is one, because technology, but also because they were used for this specific reason. They were used for underhanded illegal laundering money, arms dealing. They're used in heat for the same exact way. I mean, they're bearer bonds, so whoever has them has the cash, and that's why they try to do that deal and anyway.
Right. Yes.
So that's you can't register them. If you have them in your hands, you're the owner.
There's so many little like pieces of flair of this movie that are just stand out and make it exceptional. When Bruce Willis comes back into like the elevator shaft, he opens up some sort of control panel, and there's a there's a picture, there's a Playboy centerfold, and he just takes a moment. He's in this like horrible environment. He takes a moment to pat the picture, just to give it like a high five, like, hey, that's cool that's there. It's a little pick me up. I get it. Awesome.
Yeah. I get to see boobs one last time before I possibly get shot. Right.
Right.
That's great. Yeah. So many tiny little things that just it's fucking brilliant. It's my Christmas tradition. I watch it every Christmas Day.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Yeah, it's so damn good. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't have anything else to say about it. So.
Let's move on. Let's spin the wheel of Christmas again. Deadly Games.
Code Noel. This one I don't
Santa Claus.
Since we saw this one so recently, I don't actually have any notes on this one, but I mean, I can just dive into it. So you want to give the plot synopsis of this, or do you want me to do it? It's fine.
Well, so I'll give this. On Christmas Eve, a resourceful young boy has to defend himself and his grandfather from a killer dressed as Santa Claus.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
I mean, his mother is the chief executive of a department store, like a big department store.
Yeah, she seems like she's on like a lot of boards because she talks about how she invests in different toy stores.
She probably owns different guys.
So she might be in the board of directors.
Conglomerate. Okay.
But she actually works at this one because she has to rectify the books on Christmas Eve.
She's in charge of everything.
Right.
But I think this idea of rectifying the books on Christmas Eve is something else that the movie kind of does a lot of, which just doesn't make
there's a lot of devices to set this up for sure.
But she has to go to work. Her father lives with them in this castle out in like the suburbs of Paris. And he's diabetic. He can't see very well. He's old and skinny. He's like Grandpa Joe.
It is a very Grandpa Joe character.
And Thomas is this 10-year-old genius inventor, prodigy of technology. And
he's a software developer. He's a mechanic. He is also like, he knows electronics. He is able to wire up cameras and also a remote control and also a remote viewing
device
on his arm for his entire house. Now, his entire goal. So he's a precocious, really brilliant 10-year-old kid, but he also is coming. He still believes in Santa Claus. So his intent this Christmas is to catch Santa and be able to see Santa Claus, because
he's kind of wavering in that belief too, right? Is that fair? I mean,
well, he's wavering because also I think all of the kids in his class are also like kind of telling him that Santa's not real, and all of our parents buy our Christmas present and that sort of thing.
And so it's like, if I can catch Santa, I can prove to you.
Right. So he's basically trying to kind of prove to himself whether or not Santa is actually real or not. And he also kind of wants to, defend himself to his classmates when he's been defending Santa as well. But his mother tells him before she goes off to work that day and leaves him to take care of his diabetic, elderly, non-sighted grandfather, that if you see Santa, he'll turn into an ogre. And so that's why you want to go to bed. You don't want to see Santa because he'll turn into an ogre and he'll try to get you. The subplot of this movie, not necessarily a subplot, but the also side action in this movie is that we have a pedophile roaming the streets. And a pedophile maybe is too strong a term. You're not really knowing.
It's coded that way, but he's a vagrant.
Right. He's a vagrant. And so he engages in this snowball fight outside of this city apartment. All the kids get weirded out and they run away. So he goes to the store and he ends up going onto this like computer terminal looks like some sort of Grand Central Station, some sort of train station, which is a public computer terminal. And yes, and he's like by the quarter, he's online chatting as Santa with kids, which is a really weird piece of software. I don't know how that actually works, where anybody can chat. But anyway, he's chatting with Thomas on this code Santa Claus
kiosk,
and so he's answering Thomas's questions. He doesn't really know that this is Thomas necessarily. He goes and gets a job he runs out of quarters, as a vagrant will do, and can no longer chat as Santa Claus. So he goes to the toy store to get a job as Santa because Thomas's mom wants Christmas Eve to be a fucking blowout. Santa's on she wants people to think that Santa shops at her store. She wants Santas on every aisle. She wants flamethrowers. She wants comedic gymnasts.
Dancing elves.
Comedic gymnast was the one that drove me over the line. Maybe a bad translation.
Comedic gymnastics.
So she wants all of this craziness to be in this store that is already jammed packed, full of people still buying gifts at like 10:30 at night
on Christmas
Eve.
Different times, man. Right, it was different times.
So he goes and he's very easily, no background check, he's very easily able to get a job as Santa. So he gets a job as Santa. And the first girl we don't necessarily know it's the first girl, but one of the girls that comes up to him and sits on his lap and is going to tell him what he wants. He starts stroking her face. She gets weirded out, says, "You're not the real Santa." And he Will Smiths her and slaps the shit out of her. Well, Thomas's mom sees that and obviously fires him on the spot and tells him to go up to HR and you're fired and get gone. And so he goes up to HR and he finds out that there's a huge load of toys being delivered to the boss's house. And so he jumps in the truck and heads over to the boss's house to exact his revenge, still dressed as Santa Claus. And there he finds Thomas and his grandfather. Now, in this castle, so this movie has a lot of failings in
yes.
in a sense. It is a lot of fun to watch, I will say, but it is not. I wouldn't go so far as to classify it as a good movie. It is a confusing movie, and we'll get into
a lot of weird choices.
Yeah, and so in this house, it is a very big and gigantic house. It has Thomas is set up in the house. He's basically given free reign. I'm not really sure when he goes to school. I know he does go to school, but he has a lot of free time on his hands, and he's basically a latchkey kid because he's set up all these secret passageways. And his father has lived there, so this looks like some sort of family heirloom that's been dropped down over and over again. And they put all of their toys in a back kind of hidden room that only Thomas knows how to get to. And it's full of really fantastical toys, like almost a life-size plane, an Indian totem, and so there's all kinds of toys, and it's just kind of like a wasteland of toys that Thomas is
like a treacherous bridge.
Right. Think Willy Wonka. Think
Willy Wonka on the island of misfit toys.
There you go. And so so Thomas already has kind of the home field advantage when Santa comes to take revenge. So Thomas is trying to stay awake for Santa Claus. He talks to his mom, and he's underneath the this dining room table where the fireplace is. And so Thomas actually falls asleep, and his mom kind of coaxes him to sleep, and he falls asleep. But then the psycho Santa comes down the chimney, and Thomas wakes up. And unfortunately, Thomas has a dog named JR, who's kind of his best friend. And in one of the most harrowing scenes of the film, the dog starts to attack Santa, and Santa takes a pie knife, whatever you call those, in a very European film fashion, just stabs the dog right in the neck. The crowd we were watching it with was not prepared for that type of chaos, because you don't see dogs getting killed very often in movies.
And I never do, because I close my eyes.
Thomas freaks out. The dog is unfortunately dead. It's a very rough scene. And then, of course, it's just a battle of wits between Thomas and Santa and Grandpa. He tries to hide Grandpa in the toy area because Grandpa can't see very well. And then he puts Grandpa in this suit of armor a little bit later on, and that's kind of wired together. But his Grandpa starts to go into diabetic shock, and he needs his insulin. So there's all these kind of obstacles that happen. Now, all during this time, there's just different types of battles between Thomas and Santa, and they're all edited really oddly. The tension in this movie is completely undercut. And again, I hate shitting on this movie necessarily, because I don't want to discourage people from watching it. But if we're going to pick it apart, the tension's completely undercut, because you don't, like, something will happen. You'll see Thomas set up a booby trap. It will go off, and then Thomas will slowly walk away, or Santa will slowly walk away, and then they'll move directly to the next booby trap. And so they're all kind of intricate, and you're very much rooting for this kid, because he's emotional. I wouldn't say he's the greatest actor in the world, but he gave it his all for this movie. Mm-hmm. He's very emotional. He's cute. He's got a mullet and spiky hair on top. He is, I don't know, he's engaging in the same way. And again, this movie was compared to Home Alone, and the director Rene Manzoor, he had wanted to sue because Home Alone comes out a year later. It's very loosely based, but this guy,
it's the same kind of premise. I mean, bad guys come into a kid's house,
right.
Kid's alone, and he fights off the bad guys. But I mean, look, you can't copyright a premise. You know what I mean?
But he does have kind of the same sort of, like, he's not quite as precocious as
Kevin,
as I wanted to say Haley Joel Osment, but Macaulay Culkin. But he is that same type of role where he's smarter than the bad guys. And so this ensues for a while. They go over the Santa Claus wreaks havoc. He kills the groundskeepers. He kills a few other people, but mainly he's just a creep for the most part. He's never really all that overly menacing. He has a couple of chances to really hurt Thomas and really hurt the grandfather, and he doesn't take those chances. And then, then he's offed, and that's basically it. I mean, it's an interesting, I don't know, interesting is the right term. I mean, I will say, look, I'm glad that I've seen it. I wouldn't necessarily ever go back to it. I think it's a fun little artifact of a movie. And it's fun to say you're pulling out this French kind of Home Alone Christmas film. And there's not a lot of Christmas films either, they can go a bunch of different ways, but there's not a lot of underseen Christmas films that are really kind of you can put things in your back pocket and say, hey, have you seen Deadly Games? And this is what that movie is. It is a very fun movie to pull out of your pocket and say, hey, if you're looking for something different to watch on Christmas and you don't mind a dog getting stabbed in the neck, then this is the movie. Yeah, check this out. It's fun. It is a 95-minute watch, and it will be one of those things you can put it in your back pocket now and throw it out to someone who hasn't seen it at a party.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those. I mean, I enjoyed it. It was fun. I don't need to see it again. But I will mention it, to other people, and I think that
there's enough good in it to make it watchable.
There's enough interesting in it to sit through it and see where it goes and see what happens.
It is definitely a fun party movie. It is definitely to see with the crowd. I know Joe Bob Briggs did put his commentary on it on Shudder. It was recent. So I mean, so there's that as well. So I mean, again, it's one of those movies if you have a group of people watching, it would be a fun movie to watch.
Yeah. And it's a conversation piece. I mean, I don't know. I don't have a whole lot to say about it. I enjoyed it. I thought these weird montages and the weird moments of Thomas sitting in a chair and pondering what has happened. It just took me out of it.
Well, it completes those sins, right? Of if it is clearly, like, this guy would go on to do TV stuff afterwards. And he do American stuff as well. Like, but it has that sin of like a voiceover or a montage or a flashback scene immediately after the scene had just happened. So like it just brings you right back to it. It doesn't trust its audience enough, and it also doesn't do enough with its plot of this kid against this guy, that Santa Claus should be more menacing other than just being a creep. Yeah. And we should be given more of an outline of the house and have a better feel for what Thomas is like going through. Because again, you feel like Thomas can completely like wreck this guy whenever he wants to. Were he to given like the,
and vice versa.
Right, exactly. So there's no, like with Home Alone, obviously that was just a comedy of errors the entire time, but you always felt like Kevin had the upper hand on that. Right. And Kevin was never really trying to kill. And so that's the other thing too. Is this movie like plays in emotional swings? As Thomas comes back and he has an opportunity to kill Santa, but he has this love for Santa. And he also, I think the intriguing part of it was that the idea that his mom put in his head about, well, this is your fault because this is an ogre. You turned him into an ogre. Right. But there's too many confusing things like the maze inside the house that Thomas gets stuck in for some reason.
The art museum.
Right, that he's looking for his mom's bedroom, and then like you pan up in a weird framing shot, and you see that there's artwork all over the floor. There's like really, really odd choices. And
the interior design is not consistent,
right? And it feels like a Bonnie Tyler video. Basically, and it's shot weird. And I guess weird's not maybe the right term, but I would really love to pick his brain about why there are all these Batman, 1960s Batman angles in this movie, because most of the time. And I don't think it's because you're supposed to be seeing this from Thomas's angle, because a lot of it's slanted, but it's all you're looking up. At most of the shots, you're looking up at people, and so it seems like it's for style's sake.
It feels like a cheap trick,
right?
We're going to heighten tension this way rather than do it through narrative devices.
Yeah, and there's a ton of character. There's a ton of smoke, and there's a ton of just like fuzzy backgrounds and things like that
that you see in sort of gothic horror movies. Those kind of tropes.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's worth watching, and it's worth telling your friends that you've seen it, so you can be the cool guy or girl at the party.
And that's what we're here to do for you.
Yes. We're here to help you. We're here to make you cooler.
Yes.
All right, let's move on to the next one.
The next three, I can't wait. Those were the two that I was like, all right, what are we going to do?
Falling for Christmas. Okay, so Lindsay Lohan plays Sierra. She is a spoiled heiress to a hotel magnate. Her father has created a job out of thin air for her. She is the VP of Atmosphere, which I swear to God has to exist somewhere now.
Absolutely.
Absolutely does. So while her father's away on business, Sierra goes on a hiking excursion with her influencer boyfriend Tad. Whoever's playing Tad, I feel like he's the only one having fun in this movie.
Oh, for sure.
He is having such a good time.
Right? He's like, I didn't watch Glee, but I know that his name is Cord Overstreet. I think he's from Glee.
Well, he's having a really good time. So they're on the top of they're on this.
He's the only one in the right movie.
Right. Okay. Yes.
Like he understands this role.
Well, you know who else has fun? Is Ralph.
Oh, which one is Ralph?
He's the ice fisherman, the guy that's in the ice.
Oh, yes.
He's having a really good time too. But no, you're right. He's the only one.
Everyone else is not an actor or is just trying to like resurrect a career that doesn't exist.
Jack Wagner maybe is having a good time.
Probably.
The dad who was on all of the soap operas.
So I didn't interrupt.
No. Anyway, okay. So they go out on this hiking trip and they're on top of a ledge and Tad proposes with this ring that is like 18 sizes too big for her. You can see how much he cares. So as he proposes, a big old wind knocks Sierra down the hill where Jake, the owner of a cute bed and breakfast next to her father's lodge, finds her and she has amnesia.
Of course.
So Jake takes her to the hospital where she's a giant pain in the ass and the doctor's like, she can't stay here, right? There's no room. She has to go. And the sheriff is like, she can't come with us.
Thing that's going on. No room at
the inn. So Jake takes her back to his lodge and promptly puts her to work as a cleaning lady. I think it's really cute when the privileged class tries to do labor.
It's a great montage. I'll give you that.
Great. So you know where this is going. Jake and Sierra fall in love. Oh, also,
But her name's Sarah now.
right. They've changed. She can't remember her name. So because Jake is a widower,
Of course,
with a daughter, and his mother-in-law helps run the inn because it was actually her husband's inn that the husband left to Jake and his wife as a wedding present.
What's his wife die of? Like just general malaise? I don't know.
Generic death. I don't think we ever know.
She's died of death.
She's just dead. She caught the death. During all this time, Tad is lost in the forest, and he laments this fact by shouting, "What kind of a forest doesn't have Wi-Fi?" So he meets Ralph in this forest, who's an ice fisherman. Sierra's dad comes back, and he's like, "Where's my daughter?" And the sheriff finds Tad and Sierra's dad and says, "Oh, I know where your daughter is. Come with me." And they promptly go and bust up a fundraiser for Jake's inn that Sierra/Sarah had kind of helped conjure up. Immediately, Sierra remembers who she is. She says, "Golly, sorry, Jake. Gotta go. I'm out." Turns out I'm fucking rich. And she splits. Next morning, she's doing all her own housework, right? All of her minions are like, "Oh my God, are you okay? What are you doing?" She decides eventually that she does not want to marry Tad. Tad's kind of broken up, but then it seems like he hooks up with like the valet or something. He's going to go on his influencer way. Jake's daughter convinces him to go find true love again, or the mother-in-law convinces him. I don't know.
It gets very convoluted at the end.
Jake runs to the other lodge and he's like, "Oh, hey, good to see you. Cool." And Lindsay Lohan's like, "No, I love you. Here, let's kiss under this mistletoe." And Lindsay Lohan's dad and Jake's daughter come running out to meet them too. And it's a merry, happy Christmas.
Cue the blooper reel.
Yeah.
So this movie is obviously it's Overboard meets It's a Wonderful Life meets obviously then just soap opera. Right. Had this movie had been as sinister as Overboard, where Jake had actively realized who she was and was trying to keep her, that would have been a movie that I would have liked to have seen.
Yeah, because earlier in this film, Jake goes to Beauregard, who's Sierra's dad, and wants him to invest in his lodge as kind of a feeder partnership, right? People who can't ski very well stay at his lodge. Then when they get better, they go to the bigger lodge. Yeah, they graduate. And Beauregard's like, "Nice idea." No. Also, I was surprised that he wasn't more of a dick in this film.
The dad. Yeah, this is innocuous. This is such a cookie cutter, like no one's offensive. Like the biggest bad guy is the social media influencer boyfriend. And even
he's just an idiot.
He's just a mo, right? It's not even a big deal. Which is fine. I understand who this movie exists. This is for tween girls or tween moms or people who just want to turn this.
Wrong movie. Sorry. Mothers of tweens.
Right. It is people who like milk and toast, and that's basically it. This is a white bread movie for white bread people who don't want to have to think about anything, or people who are the guys who do riff tracks who are just aching to tear this thing into your asshole.
Right.
Look, it's innocuous in every way it possibly can. It is not interesting in any way, shape, or form. There's some things to pick apart about this movie. Like when she gets to the bed and breakfast, they look for her real family for all of about 0 seconds.
Nope,
there is no effort whatsoever to find out where the fuck she actually belongs. And she doesn't even seem to care either.
She's like, "This is fine. Everything's fine. You guys seem nice." Right? Earlier in the movie, too, Jake had spilled cocoa on her dress, although she had giant sunglasses and a big hat on, and they were yelling at she was yelling at him and sort of storming off in a huff. So I guess that makes sense why he didn't recognize her. I was trying to make that work in my head because I'm like,
well, and also
same color hair.
Basically, the entire plot is the little girl's fault. Because
she made a wish.
Because she made a wish for her, I mean, we don't get this on film, but I guarantee you, she makes a wish for a new mom.
Well, she says it later.
That's true.
She's at the end when that convinces him to run off. But we don't really know. She writes the wish down. She puts it on the tree, and then Santa, the real Santa, is actually in this film, and he sort of does his nose thing.
But because this little girl made a wish, 2 people nearly died.
I know.
And
Santa
so-
would never let them die. Well, that's the other thing. It's like Tad is out there, and I'm like, that dude would have died like 3 times by now.
For sure, sure.
At least.
This whole thing like felt like it was filmed on a backlot of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just garish.
It's kind of on a
like,
float.
Yeah, and like all of the other actors who aren't named actors feel like they're newscasters or just extras that showed up on set one day. Nothing about this looks real. Like, again, you live in this world where you live in a huge ski lodge and a bed and breakfast and a town around it that can support both of these, and at no point. And again, we're given the idea that Sierra went off on her own, so no one's thinking that she's missing. But the other flip side of that is they don't go to the police department and say, "Hey, do you know who this person is?"
Well, the sheriff is in the hospital, right? The sheriff sees her.
That's true. Yeah.
But
again, a single sheriff.
But you're going to tell me that the mayor of that town doesn't know
the richest
dude's daughter. I mean, because you know that this guy Beauregard, who owns this giant lodge that is probably a big part of the local economy.
Yeah, it has to be.
The mayor knows this dude. The mayor knows this dude and who his family is and what happened to his wife, and is always looking for money, for campaign money from this guy.
Right.
So he's just like, oh, who are you?
2 things that stuck out to me were when she gets her memory back and he goes to see her at the big hotel or big resort. He mocks her condition. Like, he holds up this mistletoe and says, "Oh, you know what? I forgot what this was all about." And she's like, she should have like broken her face with her eye roll at that point, because it's like, hey, that's a serious medical condition, you ass, that you basically used me for labor, for unpaid labor for a good couple of weeks.
But she was able to learn about the plight of the working man, which will now make her a better upper management CEO.
The 1970s sitcom of housework montage. These types of movies, and again, like them if you like them, I just can't get past the ridiculousness of all of the scenarios. I can get past putting too much soap in the washing machine, because that's happened in 100 different movies in 100 different ways. Whatever. Okay, that's a trope. Fine. When she's cleaning the toilet and water is actively coming out of the toilet because she got a brush stuck in it, that's not a thing. Like, water never comes out of a toilet like that. And this is the thing, is that she's so useless as a human being that she can't do anything. She doesn't know how to crack eggs. Like, how does she know how to do anything?
But again, like in these aren't even played as like social commentary.
No, it's not.
And
it's all played for just broad, like, ridiculous
humor. Amnesia jokes.
Right.
But it's never touched on. And I think that is one of the bigger failings of this film, is that it touches on all of these kind of cornerstones of our sort of modern trappings. People wanting to be influencers, people peddling things like how you're trending as like commerce, people not knowing how inflation costs groceries or how to crack eggs. And it just does nothing with them except like, look at this guy, he's so funny. He would have died out here, but that's okay. And I think
I don't know if this, again, I'm not the market for the abundance of Christmas movies and this exists, this whole Hallmark thing that exists nowadays, that where you're just churning these things out. The way that I see them from an outsider perspective is that they're all Nicholas Sparks movies. Like, one girl goes into a little town and you know, there's a widower there. Are they all played for these broad, stupid laughs? Or I mean, because again, I can understand liking that thing, right. Like liking a romance story of a girl who's kind of plucky, but like trying to find her way, and she meets a handsome dude. Harlequin romance, I totally get, right? And I can understand making those over and over and over again, because you can just, it's like Romeo and Juliet. You can just place it and put it in any scenario. You can put all kinds of different flavors on it, churn these things out. They don't cost anything to make. And there's an audience for it, you know, 30, 31 days out of the year. Fine. I get the idea behind making that. And this thing, but if they're all like this, I can't imagine people going back to this well over and over and over again. Because why would you go to another one of these? Like, why would you watch this again? Or why would you watch anything that was like this, with this kind of broad, like just kind of dumbing down humor? I get it if it's played straight. If it is a soap opera and someone got amnesia and there's a mysterious twin that pops up at the end, and you know, and a beautiful woman has to perform brain surgery on her sister and put the brain inside her own head. I get all of that. I get why you would watch that. But this idea of like water shooting out of the toilet and like this precocious like little kid who's like kind of a jackass and like, you know, and again the mom who the mother-in-law who's still like really, you know, rooting for her son-in-law, but even though he kind of sucks too, like I mean,
they all suck,
right? You know what? And no one talks about, and what's really bizarre about this movie, and like you really want to flip it, like the guy that she falls in love with looks exactly like her dad, and they never say a damn thing about it.
Nope, but they look
exactly identical.
Yes, they do.
Like, so the guy that she leaves, which is a rich, successful, again, you can tell me what you wanted to say about influencers, what kind of success they, quote unquote, they actually have. But he is a successful, rich guy. And again, they don't really love each other, but that's fine. But the guy that she falls in love with, which again, after under ridiculous circumstances and after like, you know, a week, now the guy that she's going to spend her time with looks identical to her father, is creepy as F.
And the fact, now we're not going to say fuck.
We're not going to say fuck anymore. No, it's Christmas. It's Christmas.
The foundation of that relationship does not seem great. And I want to go back and just say that I don't think every film has to have some kind of like message about society or about like work or privilege or whatever or anything. But I do think this movie brings it up and plays it as something else. And I think that's why I point that out, because the reason she can't crack eggs is because she's never had to do anything for herself ever. It's not because she has amnesia. She's never had to do anything. So she's like, what's a fucking egg? That's not what an omelet looks like. And I think that, like,
but also you're a human being in human skin. Like that is an alien thing to understand. That is like
it's a stupid joke anyway, right? It's a callback to the "Don't Worry, Darling" like empty egg. I did not mean to reference that movie again. I thought that I had like forgotten it. Okay, can we stop talking about this?
Well, my last point about this is one thing I wrote in my notes was I want to say good for Lindsay, because I think that girl's been through some shit, sure. and I think that the popular culture has put her through some shit. Granted, she's done drugs and she's made some bad decisions. I think she did those at a really young age.
Oh, we all have.
I'm real, but also she was put on display, and like if there's anything that like Why Does a Wilhelm Scream like really want to like castigate, I really kind of our treatment of young female starlets in the 2000s and 2010s was abhorrent. And the fact that she can come out of that and still be alive and making films, this is not, I think it's unfortunate again. And this is just my opinion, which I shouldn't necessarily say it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate for me, who saw her as a really talented comedic actress in Mean Girls and even in her younger, I mean, like The Parent Trap. She was really good in those. It's unfortunate that this is where this has led her, but this is a fine career. And if she's happy and then do these things, and if this wants to be like a market that she does that she carves out for herself, great. I'm not going to be watching, but I wish her all the best.
No, I think this is.
If you're listening, Lindsay, that's my message to you.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with this more. I'm 100% on board with this idea. I thought she was an interesting actor too, and was curious to see what she was going to sort of develop into. And I think it is. Look, when you're a teenager, early 20s, and you're given a ton of money, and people surround you with the wrong type of people, because look, when you're a teen actor, you don't know who to surround yourself with. Maybe some of these young women have learned from this, but you don't know. And if your parents are shitheels, and if your manager is off, and again, I don't know this, but
right. Well, her parents were shitheels,
right? I mean, I knew that, but I don't know who like her agent and manager was, right? But these are people surrounding her with other people with bad bad influence.
Well, and we took such delight in the downfall, right?
This is the other thing,
which is so sickening.
This celebrity culture, we love to see someone fall. We love to see someone turn into look what we do with Britney Spears, and now here we are, like, free Britney. Well, we're partly to blame, it's the same because breath, right? we drink that stuff up like we just can't get enough. I mean, it is some kind of elixir that we're just like, take them down, let's see them fucking fall into a puddle.
Well, and we do it with defenseless people.
Oh,
I mean, these young girls all they wanted to be was young girls, and I don't mean that in a demeaning sense. It's
right.
And we almost invite them to, like, we just point out the puddles and say, hey, step in that.
Yeah.
I mean,
or we push them into it.
Right.
Look, I will never know what it is like to be a woman at any age. And so I can't even imagine the kind of stressors, what it's like to be hypersexualized at such a young age, what it's like to have every eyeball on your breasts Right?
Well, and people constantly asking who you're having sex with, if you're having like I hope that we've moved past this
But we
fetishness of like, yeah, I mean, but when we had, you talked about like people wearing purity rings, and like there was such a concentration on the virginity of these young starlets and stars even. I mean, that it was just like, what the fuck? What are we thinking?
But that also mirrors what we do in regular society.
Yeah,
we have these puritanical beliefs. I mean, how many high school girls are wearing purity rings or are signing promise contracts? And it's like these health professionals that are in schools, and by that I don't really mean health professionals. I mean administrators who think they're health professionals. It's like they can't remember what it was like when their hormones were actually starting to go. It's fucking stupid. We don't teach anybody anything about what's going on. This has just become sort of like sex ed corner now, I think. but I mean, it's the same. It's we don't teach people what's going on with their own bodies, and this idea of this unattainable idea of purity, right? And this unattainable idea of sacred virginity, in the same way that we don't teach them about alcohol and drugs.
Right.
And so these two things go hand in hand with someone as a young celebrity as well. We're here to solve all the problems.
We are. Why does the Wilhelm solve our problems? So good job, Lindsay. I hope if Christmas movies are where you want to be, I hope you make 1 million of them and they all do great. Okay, next movie. 2 left, 2 down. Which one it'll be? Which one will it be? The will tell us. Oh, mighty will.
Black Christmas.
Black Christmas. We're saving holiday handcuffs for last. I do want to spin the wheel one last time because I just want to hear that again. But Black Christmas, Bob Clark's seminal 1974 slasher. Look, there's not much to this, man. You're in a sorority house. Killers inside the house, man. You don't know why. What the fuck's happening? They're getting phone calls. Girls start dropping like flies. There's a girl outside the sorority house that drops like flies. You don't see that's off screen for some reason. And then the cops are befuddled. The girls are befuddled. We're just trying to figure this shit out. This movie kicks ass.
I love this movie.
It's so, and again, this is a movie that you watch it today. It's easy to dismiss because you're like, oh, I've seen that shit 100,000 times.
But why would I like 1974 in fucking Toronto?
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. And so Bob Clark had done 2 other horror films, Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things and Death Dream. Have you ever seen Death Dream?
No.
Okay, so Death Dream, and this is why I kind of like gravitate towards horror, and I really kind of champion this era. Like you talk about what Jordan Peele's doing, all these things, and again we've talked about it, but opening up avenues for queer stories and all kinds of different stories. Death Dream is about a young man who dies in Vietnam and then comes back because his mom wishes that he doesn't die, and he ends up flying back and starts wreaking havoc on the town and starts killing people in the town. And was really one of the first films ever to ever talk about PTSD. I mean, and it framed it in a horror bent, but it was talking about PTSD and how these men that came back from Vietnam, and this is in 72, man, or 73. I can't remember exactly, but it was close around this time. And so like laying new ground. And then so this movie comes out, and again, so Death Dream, Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, didn't do well for him. This was his first big hit. And and if you don't know who Bob Clark is, Bob Clark's got one of the most interesting directorial careers of all time. He would do A Christmas Story, and he would do A Summer Story, the follow-up to Christmas Story. But he would also do like Porky's and Porky's 2 and Porky's Revenge. So he was, and then he would go and do Super Babies and Baby Geniuses and like all these shitty ass movies at the end of his career. He was all over the place. But also directed some of the highest grossing Canadian comedies, teen sex comedies. Porky's was the highest grossing teen sex comedy until American Pie came out. I mean, that was, 2-3 decades later. Christmas Story is a film that is played every year. Ad nauseum on Thanksgiving and during Christmas. And this guy has just an amazing career. He's done some really, really interesting things. And he's done, like I said, the things that he's done that are really, really bad. Man, the guy swings for the fences because they are really, really terrible. Again, we're not talking about all of those. I do think check out Death Dream. It's not the greatest
I'll have
film.
to find it. That sounds really,
but it is an interesting movie. So you got Black Christmas. You got a young Andrea Martin with a kick-ass fro. She's dating Gene Shalit. This is, and and if you don't know who Gene Shalit is, look him up. That's her boyfriend. It's not really her boyfriend. The guy that looks like her boyfriend looks like in this movie. This is a college that is basically for 45-year-old students. They all look like they're on their third marriage.
It was 74. And if you look at Margot Kidder, she's always drinking and smoking in this film.
Right. And rumor has it that she was actually drunk during
she
those
had
scenes.
a lot of fun, quote unquote, is what she said on this film. So
she's like the hard edged sorority sister. She's probably the senior who's seen it all. She starts getting the phone, like they start getting the phone calls, and they're all like, so they start getting these like sexual phone calls, basically saying, I want to lick your, see you next Tuesday, and like I'm going to stick certain things. And so all the girls have started to come to like gather around when the phone rings and this guy calls, because they all want to hear it. And then Marco Kiddo basically tells them off, and it's been fairly innocuous. Innocuous. It's obviously frightening for them and it's disturbing, but it's, it hasn't resulted in any sort of violence or any sort of
they call
action.
him the moaner. So there's this idea that it's repetitive.
Right. And so as we're entering into Christmas break, we start to meet some of the girls. We meet Olivia Hussey. She is pregnant with her, with Keir Dulley's boy, with her boyfriend, who played by Keir Dulley. He wants her to get does he want her to keep it, and she wants an abortion?
Yeah. And this is I'll let you keep going, but this is a really interesting note in this.
Also, this is very shortly after Roe v. Wade.
Yeah.
And Bob Clark has mentioned that this wasn't really anything that was a political statement. He really was just trying to have like two people who were of the age to have this conversation, and he needed something to have them talk about during the downtime of between the killings, essentially.
Yeah. But again, like, movies are interpretation machines, and I'm looking at this movie through a giant feminist lens.
Oh, for sure.
Because of a moment like that where, she's like, I'm pregnant, I'm having an abortion, and he's like, blah, 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 my baby too, blah, 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 my dreams. What are you doing, you selfish woman? And she's like, I have things I want to do with my life. Okay, I have lots of stuff I want to do, and I'm not ready for this yet. So sorry.
The women in this movie are very unapologetically who they are. Like Margot Kidder is a hard drinking, hard smoking.
She's the cool girl,
right? Olivia Hussey is probably the ingenue kind of, but she's
she's the
pregnant.
pretty one.
And she has designs on her life.
Andrea Martin's the smart one.
Right.
And then Claire, I forget the actress, but she is like the good girl.
Right.
I mean, but they all fit in these types, but like, I think in a very kind of subversive, interesting way.
And they have another hard drinking, hard smoking house mother who basically just has bottles of booze
stashed everywhere,
hidden inside of books like Shawshank Redemption. and as one of the girls, as Olivia Hussey's father comes to look for her, she's like hiding posters.
It's Claire's girl.
Is it? Oh, it's Claire.
Yeah,
okay. He's looking for her because she's gone. Oh, that's right. Because she was the first one to go missing.
Yeah.
He comes to look for her. And so one of the girls ends up, I guess so basically everyone is clearing out for Christmas break. And Claire is she's the good girl, but she's also the new girl. And Margot Kidder's kind of giving her shit about being the new girl and kind of being prissy and not,
it's a sorority house, not a nunnery or whatever she said.
Right.
Yeah.
And so everyone clears out of the house. Claire hears a noise upstairs. She goes upstairs to investigate. It turns out, and this is not a reveal, this happens in the credits. The killer is inside of the house the entire time. He's up in the attic, or at least up in whatever would be the attic in this sorority house. She goes upstairs to look for him. No. Actually, he's in the closet. The houseman that goes upstairs. She goes goes to investigate a noise. He puts a plastic bag over her head and then drags her up in the attic and puts her in a rocking chair. So she's in the rocking chair with a plastic bag over her head the entire movie. You've seen the poster of the movie with a wreath with a girl in that's Claire. A little later on, the house mother goes up and she gets hooked in the face.
I didn't understand where that hook came from, but whatever.
I don't either. Yeah, but she gets hooked in the face. Margot Kidder starts having, and so throughout all of this, we because the father comes and no one knows where Claire is, the police get involved in a great role by John Saxon. If you don't know who John Saxon is, he played the dad in Nightmare on Elm Street, but he's also kind of a stalwart of all these 70s action films and horror films. And, so
lots of TV too.
Yeah. Invasion of the Flesh Eaters is one of my favorite ones of his. And also he's an alligator, which I fucking love alligator. Alligator's so good. But so the police start getting involved, and then of course they brought in, and they're trying to track the phone calls, but the killer won't stay on the phone long enough. And then of course they start to think that Keir DeLay, who is Olivia Hussey's boyfriend, it may be the killer because she's pregnant, and that that may have triggered something in him, and that he's trying to kill off the girls, and that he's tracking Olivia Hussey. So all of these murders start happening, and eventually they find out that they trace the calls long enough to realize that in a great scene where the guy's like, hey, it's coming from 6 blah 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 place, and he's like, no, that's where the calls are ending up, and he's like, that's where the calls are originating as well. And like, and so again, of the tropes of the calls are coming from inside the house, again, the first one of these films to ever do this. This is 4 years before Halloween, right? So this is, no one has seen this type of what really, I mean, and to be fair, it's not the first real slasher. I mean, there have been these types of movies throughout, but kicking off this genre and this wave, of course, Halloween's success really pushes the needle, and I mean, it moves the needle and pushes all of these copycats out. But Black Christmas laid the groundwork for all of these, and so the calls are coming from inside the house. Olivia Hussey eventually, so Margot Kidder starts having bad dreams, and she ends up getting killed with a glass unicorn. Olivia Hussey, and so Keir DeLay comes to the house. He gets killed, and Olivia Hussey basically gets hurt, but basically knocked out. So and that's essentially the end of the movie. They blame all the murders on Peter because he was there, and they think Olivia Hussey has killed him in self-defense, and so they kind of write it off, and we're left with the credits, and we're left with the killer still upstairs in the house,
and the phone ringing.
Right.
As everything goes. One of the things that I love about this film, and that you see in Halloween too, is you don't know motivation. You have no idea.
You don't even see the killer.
You never see the killer. I absolutely love that. You see his hand, you see his eye looking, and it's and if we're looking at this through, or if I'm looking at this through like a feminist lens, I mean, right? The evil of men is sort of unnameable. It's unidentifiable, but it's there all the time. It is. Well,
and I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Step on you, but that the idea of the men who are watching, that you see the kills through the point of view of the killer, which again has been done a ton now. That wasn't necessarily that common. The men watching this movie
are the killers.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're the creeps. You're the one who's imposing the violence.
And the men that are supposed to help are completely buffoonish and impotent. Right. I mean, even the John Saxon detective who understands and has a brain and wants to do good, can't stop any of this.
Right. Yeah.
And so I love that about this film. I love Margot Kidder in this film. I said this to you last night, where I have a thing for Margot Kidder in this movie, much in the same way that I still have a thing for Courtney Love. So
just hot messes, essentially.
Hot messes, smell like cigarettes and booze, and
girls that you could probably end up with, but girls that definitely, and I say girls, I don't mean it to be a derogatory term, but that you could end up with, that you think that would give you a shot, but also would not give two shits about you either. No. Just like, fine,
you're gonna get destroyed, and you're gonna enjoy it. You have to sort of sign up for that destruction.
It's a spider in a way. It's a fly in a web kind of scenario. Like, yeah, sure, you absolutely have a shot, and yes, I'm actually going to eat your heart out later on.
Something that I found, something else I found really interesting, and I found there was some interesting articles written about this film that have been, I think, explained better by feminist scholars, but the sort of hinting at the bisexuality of Barb, of Margot Kidder's character. Mm-hmm. There's this great scene where
it would make sense because of her anger towards all of the sexuality of all the other girls that are there.
Or the lack of, right?
Right, yeah.
But they're having dinner with Claire's dad at the sorority house. Barb, Margot Kidder, is loaded. She's on the couch looking at what looks like a Playboy, some kind of centerfold, this nude woman, and she's not making comments. She's not sort of being crude about it. She's just looking at it. And then she gets up, and I think this is my favorite line in the whole film, and she asks, Claire's dad, did you know that there's a species of turtle that can screw for 3 days? And I can't even get 3 minutes. So there's this and she's sort of upset at the the kind of overall virginity of some of the other girls, or sort of she almost like puts it like prudishness of some of the. I mean, there's a weird
right, and she's also just angry about basically everything.
Like she hides everything through booze and dark humor and sarcasm.
She hates her situation. She hates her university. She hates the town the university is in. She says at one point when they're worried about, I forget exactly the context, but her point is, oh, you can't rape a townie. Which is such a weird, delicious, like mean line that you would say. Like, she's like, you're almost disappointed. Oh, I definitely was disappointed when she gets offed in the film. I would have loved for her to have been the final girl. Obviously, you know that Olivia Hussey is going to be the final girl in this case. Right. But and Barb, just by 1970s morals and these morals of these horror films, is going to get offed at some point. But it would have been really nice for her to have been like this. I don't know what moral stance or what messages you're putting there, but it would have been nice for her to have like survived this.
Well, I mean, I think there's just it's such a rich text in this way, and the way that she teases the desk sergeant by giving him the phone number of the sorority house. Right, there's a new exchange, FE fellatio 2088. Right, and the desk sergeant has no idea, but the way she plays this is just, it's great, and it's her kind of saying, I'm not afraid of this. I'm not shy about this. I'm not ashamed about any of this. Yeah. Which again, I mean, all of these women in their own way are working towards a kind of independence and possess a kind of strength. Even Claire, right? The new girl, the good girl who has to figure out how to tell her parents about her boyfriend.
Right. And none of the deaths come from a failing of the women. They don't make stupid mistakes. They don't, go upstairs when they shouldn't go. Look, Claire goes and looks for a noise, but that's,
and she's packing to leave too.
Right.
So it's
right. So she's there by herself, but again, it's not. She doesn't seem to. She's caught by surprise. Margot Kidder is asleep. I mean, Olivia Hussey is attacked. I mean, like the house mother, maybe, I guess, but even then, she's also thinking that Claire may be in the house somewhere.
Right.
So again, none of this is done by design. Whereas you see like, something like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where the girl is just constantly being chased. She's constantly in peril. She's not even given a voice. And I like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'm not going to bash Texas Chainsaw Massacre necessarily, but for these movies where Scream puts the the meta spin on it, where some dumb girl with big boobs running up the stairs when she should be running out the door. Right. There's none of that in this. None of this is deserved. None of it's a moral failing on these girls' parts where we're trying to make some sort of message of premarital sex or moral, impurity of some sort. It's none of that's there in this. And yeah, it's really like for this to come out of the gate like that, and then for it to become subverted so much into this 1980s like Reaganomics politics of purity for the next decade of horror films is really kind of bizarre.
Yeah, it's really weird. I mean, this is something else I love about this film is that there is no blame put on them, right? And it's just saying like, look, the evil that lurks in all these men, right? It's they're lecherous, they're possessive, they're obscene, but they're also faceless.
And it's the men,
and you can, and it's the men.
And it's the men who all of these men, end, right? It's the men that relax at the end and let their guard down when the terror is still there. They didn't solve anything.
Right.
Yeah, this movie should be studied a lot much more than it is. I mean, it should be.
Olivia Hussey starred in Franco Zeffirelli's Romeo and Juliet in '68, and they originally offered the role of the house mother to Bette Davis.
Yes. Oh, another interesting tidbit about this movie. So it was going to premiere. So this was based on a series of a Canadian serial killer named Wayne Borden. And so when this was going
sounds like a serial killer,
right? And I meant to say this is a boot, Wayne Borden, but I missed that joke. When they were going to premiere this on TV in 1978, they were going to do it in January 1978. A couple weeks before they were going to premiere it, 2 sorority girls got killed in Florida State, and then some other girls got attacked in the area. That serial killer, Ted Bundy.
Oh my God.
So a little bit of trivia. So the final film, let's spin the reel. Let's just see what it is. Maybe this won't come up and we don't have to talk about this one. Whoa. It sounded like asteroids or.
I know it wants us to talk about Die Hard again.
Sweet. All right. Our last film And I don't. This is not even my least favorite film of this set. Our last film is Holiday in Handcuffs, starring Melissa Joan Hart and Mario Lopez. I don't know where this originated. This was a 2006 film, and I've got a little bit about the director as well. Essentially, Melissa Joan Hart is an artist. She's living in a ridiculously overpriced. Well, for her, she would not be able to afford this loft wherever she's living. But that's
the magic of these movies.
But she lived there. She's an artist. She's dating a man who is an up and comer and a rich guy, and she's going to take him home for the holidays to kind of get her parents off of her back. Alas, she goes to the cafe where she's working, and her boyfriend's supposed to pick her up, and they're supposed to go up to the Poconos or to the hills or wherever the hell that New Yorkers go to have Christmas. Right. Yeah. But far enough away from society that you can't walk away from it. And he decides to break up with her. All the while, in the beginning of the film, she's perming her hair for some reason, because that's a thing that
she's got a job interview.
Oh, that's
her dad set up a job interview with a neighbor, a former neighbor of theirs.
So as one does, you perm your hair right before a job interview. She gets called from her mom. The perm stays in. Or I guess she's just curling her hair. The perm sticks too hard. So because she's on the phone with her mother, and that causes some sort of time issue. You get the idea that this girl is just a major fuck up. I mean, like, she can't do shit right in her life
anywhere.
She sucks at everything. Even when she's trying to be nice, she goes to the job interview. She lets someone cross in front of her in traffic, and he immediately wrecks, and he flips her off, basically calls her a bitch.
Like it's her fault.
Because yes, it was her fault. And then she gets stuck in traffic. She's late for her interview, and then she flips the fuck out and kind of weirds everybody out at the job interview. So she's already having a hell of a day. And so she goes to her job at the diner, where she's making money for this, what has to be a $6,000 a month rent that she's trying to put together.
Maybe it's rent controlled.
It could be. Yeah. It could be. Maybe her family owns it. Yeah. And her boyfriend comes, and she's all ready to, shed this horrible day off of her and go with her hot, rich boyfriend and impress her family and have a nice Christmas with her family up in the Poconos, wherever. And he comes and he's like, look, I slept with you once, so we're cool. I'm done. I'm not going to, meeting the family thing is not for me. I'm out. And she's like, oh, okay. And so in walks Mario Lopez, looking all, Mario Lopez-esque, right? He's just a chiseled hunk of a human being.
He's got great dimples.
Yeah, he's a good-looking guy.
Yeah.
I don't. As far as substance goes,
he's maybe a little short for me.
Maybe. So he's there to have a quick cheeseburger, and he's going to meet his fiance there.
He's going to propose.
He's going to propose to her at this diner for some unknown reason why he's choosing this place. So.
But it's always busy. That place is always busy.
Yeah, it's packed, and it's also weirdly run by a Hindu man. And so it's a Hindu man who's really into Christmas for some reason. I think it's really just about money, but I mean, right. But that's fine. That's a really weird subplot of this movie that
analyze that stereotype if at your peril. I guess I don't
know. So Mario Lopez's girlfriend's late. He finishes his cheeseburger, and he does a meet cute with Melissa Joan Hart outside. She decides, you know what, I'm going to kidnap this guy. He falls, hits his head on the ice. She puts him in his car, drives him up to her parents' house. When they get there, she's like, look, we're going to be at my parents' house, and I'm going to pretend you're my boyfriend, and I need you to do this for me. And he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And so he gets to the house, and he runs into a gas station attendant, and she comes up with this plan of like, oh, well, that's going to be our thing, where he's going to pretend not to be my boyfriend, and I'm kidnapping him, and then that's going to be a funny thing that everyone's going to buy into, and then so that'll be fine. So he'll be too far away from the city to be able to walk back. He's stuck here with me. We'll do this for through Christmas, and then we'll get out, and I'll let him go, and everything will be fine. That's Melissa Joan Hart's plan. He plays along. He basically does try to convince her family that he has been kidnapped, that his name is Michael and not David, or David and not Michael.
David and not Nick.
Nick. There we go.
Yeah. I'm not Nick. I'm David. And they're like, haha, Nick.
And they completely buy into it. Her parents are white bread Americana. You've got Marky Post as her mom, who's a stay-at-home mom who is undersexed and over houseworked, and Timothy Bottoms is her dad, who is probably a retired Republican, does something, but they have money. But he's a tighty-whities wearing moron, essentially.
Like sex once a year. I mean, it was
right. Birthday sex once a year kind of thing. He full of dad jokes and what have you. June Lockhart plays her drunken grandmother, trying to fill into that Betty Wright void that is existing. June Lockhart, if you don't know, is the mom from the original Lost in Space. And then two nondescript actors for her brother and sister. One is a burgeoning lawyer. Her sister's a burgeoning lawyer, apparently, and then her brother does some sort of business
finance
stuff. Right?
Yeah. Insert generic kind of.
And so, of course, you see where this is going. Over the course of time, Mario Lopez realizes, I can't get out of this situation. And so I'm just going to, I'm going to make the best of it. I'm going to play along. And eventually they start to have, I don't know if they have warm feelings fuzzies for one another, but, and then all the while back in New York City, his fiance has been looking for him, like as you would in Falling for Christmas. She's been looking for him.
She goes to the cops.
Right. And then so eventually, just to wrap this plot up in a neat little bow, is that the cops come to the place where he is located. He eventually finds a cell phone that he can use to call, and he calls her. They're able to trace him down, and they arrest the entire family. But of course, out of the goodness of what's his real name? It's David. His real name. Yeah. So David decides not to press charges. The family's very upset with Melissa Joan Hart, but ultimately, out of all of this, they get out of it unscathed.
Also, her brother comes out as gay.
Right. So yeah, through all of this, yes. So there's much more to the plot that happens here.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we find out that Melissa Joan Hart is an artist. We find out that her family literally hates her. We find out that Melissa Joan Hart's brother is also hiding a secret that he is gay and he's in a relationship with another man. We find out that her sister is very hot and wants to open up a Pilates studio rather than be a lawyer.
Is taking the tuition money.
Right. And the grandmother basically wants to escape from this family. And Timothy Bottoms and Marky Post are in a
miserable,
loveless marriage that is all facade and no
so they're all fuck ups.
Right.
And everything gets foisted upon Melissa Joan Hart.
So as it happens and Nick and Melissa Joan Hart's character are kind of stuck together over and over again, they start to learn more about each other, that while Nick actually is in finance, that, he came from humble upbringings, and then Melissa Joan Hart is an artist and she has decent art and she likes to ice skate. And, and then so the big reveal happens, at the Christmas opening up of gifts, where Melissa Joan Hart's parents decide to tell her, after everyone's opened up their gifts, that she is a horrible piece of shit and that she needs to grow up and stop being an asshole in life and just start trying to find a real job, and that art is for losers and fuck ups, and that no one will ever love her during a Christmas opening of a presents. Yeah. And then, but Mario Lopez is like, hey, I'm in finance and I've seen her art and it's passionate and soulful. And you know what? I back her. And then he decides to propose marriage to her out of the blue to kind of get her parents off of the back, exacerbating the situation completely for her and for everyone, really. But specifically for her, because now she's got their hopes risen to a certain degree that she's brought home a decent guy, and now that they're going to get married, and all this is going to fall apart in a matter of hours at this point.
And the cops bust in,
right,
and it all goes to shit from there.
So we get back. David realizes that he doesn't love his fiance, that
she's terrible,
that she's a shrew, and that she, whatever,
probably doesn't love him either.
She's not Melissa Joan Hart, right? and so he decides to set up an art gallery because he's an architect, right? Is that
so
it?
it's he.
I don't know what the fuck he is.
Yeah,
he's something.
He studied in architecture, but was too scared to go out on his own. So he decides finally he's going to go out on his own. He's going to open up his own architecture firm, but also in this building he owns an art gallery. And so before this happens, Melissa Joan Hart had some work accepted into a group exhibition at a gallery. And later on in the night, she finds out someone bought my painting, and it turns out to be him. And it's the first piece of work that will hang in his gallery. And then they come together.
And eventually, Marky Post and Timothy Bottoms, who was in the last picture show, they come to they've been in therapy. And so now they're willing to hear everyone's truths.
Yeah. And accept them.
And accept them at face value. So they love their daughter. They love that she's an artist. They love that she kidnapped a man and held him against his will for multiple days at their vacation home
and lied to them.
And they love the fact that only after a matter of probably less than 72 hours that they're desperately in love and that they're probably going to spend the rest of their lives together
and have lots of little babies.
Lots and lots of
with
little babies.
Great dimples.
Oh, yeah.
Look,
they're going to be gorgeous.
This is how Stockholm Syndrome leads to happily ever after.
There is a version of this movie that it teeters on. You could very easily take this exact same script and make a horror film out of this. Be very, very successful. This is a misery type event. It really it is so close to this. I will say to this end, in defense of this movie is what Falling for Christmas should have been.
Right.
This is
so I thought these two were actually kind of interesting double features. Right.
Yeah.
Or interesting
for
pairing.
Sure.
Yeah.
This is because I totally enjoy this movie. As much as we shit on it, I really had a lot of fun watching it.
It was much more fun than Falling for Christmas.
The actors know, again, yes, it sucks that Timothy Bottoms is in this movie.
But he knows what movie he's in.
Right, absolutely. Everybody does, even the June Lockhart piece.
Yeah.
So, and again, Mario Lopez is forever in a Saved by the Bell episode. He cannot get out of that.
He is always AC Slater.
But he knows who he is. And so does Melissa Joan Hart. She's Sabrina the Teenage Witch or
Clarissa Explains It All.
Yeah. And so this movie, again, you take this movie and I could watch one or two of these every single Christmas and really, really enjoy them.
Yeah.
It's the Falling for Christmas piece of it where I'm like, the Nicholas Sparks aspect of all of this, I need something ludicrous. And again, no one really overplays their hand in this. No one plays it too big. No one plays it too refined. They all act like they're in an episode of Saved by the Bell.
Yeah.
It's really, really stupid and fun and well done. And look, both of them are immensely on screen likable. Melissa Joan Hart sucks in real life, and that sucks for me because I have a huge fucking crush on her. But
I'm glad Courtney Love doesn't suck in real life.
Right. She has no faults whatsoever.
I'm still maintaining that crush.
But on screen, they work. And there's just ridiculous scenes. There's a ridiculous scene where she walks in on him, with the obligatory Mario Lopez shirtless scene. And it's so funny because she walks in on him and gets all flustered because he's ridiculously hot. And then he realizes it's funny because she leaves the room and he's still in his towel and he turns back to the mirror and pensively sighs oh my God, I shouldn't have shown her my hotness because that made her fall in love with me.
My six pack.
Right. My hairless, chiseled chest.
Freshly waxed. Brings his own wax
dark
pot
amber nipples. Merry Christmas, Melissa Joan.
Here's some ornaments for your tree. I look, there's some interesting ideas in this, and I because I try to find these, I think, in everything, but this idea of working for the thing that you're passionate about, which is what she's doing. You're working for the thing she believes in. These are so important to her, and they're made even more difficult to do, right? When everyone around you tells you that you're fucking stupid for doing it. And what you need to do is get a good job, get married, have some kids, buy a house. That'll fix everything. That'll make you feel okay, right? This idea of falling in line with the status quo that our society tricks us into thinking is actually progress when it's not. And then of course, at the end, it settles into these ideas of that progress. And it's get married, but open up your own small business, be an entrepreneur, and support your artist girlfriend/wife.
Right. It's all of these ideas it presents, all of the backwards ideas that it presents are so broadly cliche. Yeah. And then, but its twist of fate and its turn is so mildly progressive, but still hanging on to those old cliched tropes. It's so inoffensive that it's again, this is McDonald's movies. And but again, I can eat this every once in a while. I'm okay with that. Occasionally, I don't want to cook for myself. I don't want to fucking watch Yee Yee, all right? I want to watch... I'm not going to go to Sight and Sound and pull off one of the top 100. I'm going to watch Holiday in Handcuffs and have a fucking great time doing it.
Eating a Big Mac.
Right. One of the scenes that really made me crack up in this is when Mario Lopez is really starting to come around and like trying to help her realize her dreams. She had talked earlier about a skating routine that she'd done when she was little, and they have this like pavilion and like kind of pond out on their property, and he brings her out there. They've been together all day long, and like doing shit, and then he brings her out there at night,
right before dinner.
And turns this on, which would have taken him like 3 days to set up. There's lights in the trees
everywhere.
He would have had to find lights. He would have had to find a ladder. Electricity rolled out to that area.
With a battery operator.
And then Melissa Joan Hart puts on skates, and then a very obvious stunt double comes in and does her skating routine to the point that when they close up on her face, the entire scene is fuzzy and blurred out. Like you think you're gonna get some bad CGI of Melissa Joan Hart spinning around, and like she's like, "Don't laugh at this
change
routine.
the depth of field so you can't see.
Don't laugh at this routine." And it is a fucking Nadia Comaneci, like I'm not or whoever, like who the fuck is
Nadia Comaneci on skates,
right? Yeah, a gymnast on skates. Whoever's a good.
Tara Lipinski.
There we go. Yeah, she's brilliant, and she's like, "Don't laugh at this," and she's doing triple sow cows and like spinning around. And
is that a real thing?
That is a real thing, yeah. But I only know that because of South Park. I don't really know it's because it's a. I know. I think I watched the Tanya Harding Margot Robbie film.
Right, gotcha.
But yeah, this made me laugh because one, like the whole setup of that scene would have taken like 3 days, and then you watch her skate, and she's skating around this. It's like a really bizarre scene. She's skating around this pavilion, and like he's just kind of like got a shit-eating goofy grin on his face, and then you blur out her actual, because like clearly she's got like muscular thighs and like, you know, and it's and a Melissa Joan Hart wig on her, right? So the director of this movie is a guy named Ron Underwood, and he was kind of an up and comer. So he started out his career. He directed City Slickers, and then he directed Tremors, and he did the stuff like Heart and Souls, and like there was a few other like kind of middling, and then. But he made Mighty Joe Young in 1998, which was a huge flop. And then 4 years later, he made one of the biggest flops in Hollywood history. He made The Adventures of Pluto Nash with Eddie Murphy, which all told probably lost almost $100 million just in budget alone, not targeting, marketing, or anything else. $100 million just in budget. From there, TV movies from the rest of his career.
Well, at least he's working.
At least and pretty prolifically, but he's not going to get $100 million movie budget.
No, but he does get to work with Melissa Joan Hart and Mario Lopez.
All right, quick ranking of the films, of these films.
Okay.
Which ones you'd watch again to the least watching?
I think
they're going to be the same for us.
Die Hard has to be the top. Sure. I mean, I'll rewatch that over and over. Black Christmas would be second to watch over.
Now's the tough one.
I know.
Because Falling for Christmas clearly comes in last.
Yeah. And so it's like, where does... It's Holiday in Handcuffs because I'm not watching the dog get stabbed again.
Good point. That's a good call.
Those are my...
That's a good... Yeah,
and I'm only putting Deadly Games above Falling for Christmas because it took me a couple times to just get like more than 10 minutes in.
I can't watch Falling for Christmas.
You watched it twice. I watched it once. I was like,
I can't watch it again.
So is that the same as you?
Yeah. I probably won't like read. Like to me, Holiday in Handcuffs is Deadly Games. Like if you want to watch a funny movie, like it's obscure enough. And here's the thing about those movies too. Like there's so fucking many of them now. Like if you go and if you search Christmas on IMDb, you're going to come up with 100 movies in 2022 that came out. So again, this is a cottage industry of films. Like but Holiday in Handcuffs is one to pull out and say, oh yeah, you want to watch something batshit crazy? Watch Holiday in Handcuffs. That's fun.
Yeah, no, the movie is totally bonkers. I mean, it's just. So along with our 5 favorite films of 2022, we also wanted to have a kind of gift exchange where we gift each other a film we don't think the other has seen. So it's
convoluted, but you'll get it.
Yeah, you'll figure it out. But that makes sense, right? Yeah. So I have a pick for you. Do you have?
I have a pick for you as well. Right. Let me give you mine.
Yeah.
All right. My pick for you is Funeral Parade of Roses.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of it?
No.
Never seen it?
No.
Oh, I can't wait to talk about it.
Okay. All right.
I won't tell you anything about it. I'll text
Parade
it to
of
you.
Roses. Okay. Yeah. Perfect.
And if you don't have a copy, I'll figure out how to get you a copy.
Okay. I can find it or whatever. Yeah. Okay. I had like 3 that I couldn't decide, but I think I'm going to go with the most recent one.
Okay.
And it's a movie called Athena.
I have not seen it.
Directed by Romain Gavras.
Okay.
And it's actually on Netflix.
Oh, all right.
So I think this is a really interesting film, and I'm not gonna. That's all I'm gonna say, even though I want to say more. I didn't want to go back to. I was gonna give you a drier film, but we just did like Bresson and all that. I was like, well, let's do something else.
Right.
So yeah, Athena by Romain Gavras.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. Yeah, we'll talk about those in a couple episodes.
Yeah, a couple episodes from now. Right. So we'll do
next
Schrader
time
next, and so we'll wrap up our Schrader series in the next episode. We'll do our top 5 movies of the year and our gift exchange. The episode after that. And then following that episode, we'll be talking about the Fort Worth Film Club screening of Brazil and some things around Terry Gilliam, obviously, like we did with Blood Simple.
Like the Brothers Grimm.
We're going to deep dive into the Brothers Grimm. That screening is on December 21st at the Stage West Theater in Fort Worth. Also, tickets will go on sale. By the time that this posts, tickets will have been going on sale for the Real House Foundation Mystery Movie Minithon Part 6. This is our annual fundraiser that we do every single year. Would love to see you guys out there. It is $35 a ticket. We give you 2 secret movies. We cater the event. We'll have raffles, silent auctions. I'll be chatting about the movies before and after. It's a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. We'll have that one at Stage West as well. We're aiming to have this as our biggest event ever. So hopefully we can I'm looking for over 100 people. So hopefully we can get that moving. But I think you'll really enjoy it. I have a couple films picked out. I think you might have seen at least one of them. But one of them is pretty under the radar as far as like I saw it at the Oak Cliff Film Festival a couple of Oak Cliff Film Festivals ago, and I'm really excited to show it. I'm also really nervous to show it, but I'm always nervous to show these movies. So anyway, January 21st, starting at 6 p.m. Stage West. Go to realhousefoundation.org when this drops. Tickets, there'll be an event out there and you can buy tickets. They're $35. All the proceeds go to a good cause. None of that money comes to me. It goes to covering the event and everything else goes to the actual kids in this holding screening. So, and if you want to learn more about what we do, and of course in our outro, you'll hear it as well, but you can go to realhousefoundation.org. That's REEL housefoundation.org. Really appreciate it if you came out there and saw us.
Links are also in the show notes to our website, the Real House Foundation website, the Fort Worth Film Club website. So you can always follow along there.
Also to Brock Kingsley Gets Sometimes.com. That's a URL that I have to buy for you for Christmas.
I can't wait. Okay.
It's just going to be every day. It's just going to be a picture of you just kind of like
a new sad picture of me, which nobody wants to see. And anyone who's met me in real life is like, that's just how you look. You just look sad.
I can't wait for our new cover art. So if you guys are familiar with our cover art, obviously one of the things that Brock and I thought would be funny was to mimic kind of double-handed old rock albums. So our cover art right now is Simon and Garfunkel. We're going to do That Dog, which is I forget what the title of what's the album?
Totally Crushed Out.
Totally Crushed Out. Yes.
Such a good record.
And there's 3 individual Polaroid pictures, and the artist came to us. Her name is Molly. You can follow her out on Mo Slaughter out on Instagram. Her Instagram title is _MOSLA_.
Also on the show notes.
And she's brilliant. She does all the work for Fort Worth Film Club. She's going to be doing a flyer for the Real House Foundation. I'm so excited about that. She and I worked up a good concept for that one. And yeah, so we were thinking about what to put in the Polaroids, and we're going to do Florence Pugh, of course. We're going to do Pauline Kael, and then we're going to do Richard Gere from American Gigolo. But
I looked for a Pauline Kael review on Black Christmas, and I couldn't find it. I really wanted to see if
we need to make that a thing that we do. Like we need to figure out if we can find and like read some of our favorite quips from her during.
I've done it.
I know you have. I know. Oh, you know what? It's funny too. Like as we keep talking and the time keeps going up, and we're pissing off the guys that do this studio for us. Ebert didn't like. I love Ebert. Like,
I do too.
He did not. He didn't like Die Hard.
Right.
Die Hard was a 2-star, and like the Gleason thing for him was what really kind of derailed it.
I can see that.
And I can see like that being your first taste, but man, but like looking at it now and watching it, it's many times as I've watched it. I get giddy when it comes on.
It's so much fun.
And Kat was like, "Oh my God, this is such a good movie." Like it's just one of those things where like it's great. Oh, also, while we're sitting here talking, what do you feel about the sequels? Because I really dig 3. I like Die Hard with a Vengeance. I think is really, really good.
Yeah, no, I think 3 is really good.
All the rest of them are shit, but 3 is
really good. I will also watch any of them.
I will watch 1, 2, and 3.
I will watch. I don't care. I will watch all of them.
I can't watch the latter day ones.
The last one is terrible. Don't care. I hate Justin Long, but look.
And
Here's the thing. I tell people when they're like, oh, what kind of movies do you watch? And I'm like, Sight and Sound list.
Right.
And then I go, but I also fucking love the Die Hard franchise because I do. And I mean this, and like unironically, I will watch like 1 through 5. I don't care. I will talk about how bad the other ones are, but I will still watch them.
So I'm a huge Sam Phillips fan. And so her role in part 3 is so like voiceless and delicious. I saw her in concert one time. I love her stuff. And it's, and I was so like, when she was like kind of popular in that kind of Buffalo Tom, Counting Crows era, I saw those 3 together at Deep Ellum. And like, that's when she did the movie. And it was like, oh gosh, I was just like, I was like in love.
Sam Phillips, Courtney Love.
I don't think Sam Phillips was quite as like teetering on the edge.
No. I was saying your crush on Sam Phillips, my crush on Courtney Love.
Someday that'll happen. Yeah. Juliana Hatfield, totally. If you're out there listening, and I'm married now.
Come on the show. Come on the show.
Yeah,
have a chat. Have a chat.
I just want to talk. Just hang out.
I have like my current musical taste is really that of sort of an angsty teenage girl. Right. I mean, so like, give me any like Phoebe Bridgers or Lucy Dacus or Snail Mail and Waxahachie and Frankie Cosmos, who's Kevin Kline's daughter.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah. Anyway, give me those and Faye Webster.
Do you think Juliana Hatfield's looking for an avenue to talk about her relationship with Evan Dando anymore?
Probably. I think so. Always. Yeah. I think
we should call her and see.
And I think, here's the place to do it. So we can sing, I love my drug buddy.
Yeah.
Not that. Anyway, okay, Juliana Hatfield, I'm not insinuating that you are anybody's drug buddy. Okay,
till next time, folks.
Till next time. Thanks for listening.
Keep streaming.
Bye bye.
You have been listening to Why Does the Wilhelm Scream with your hosts Brock and Jason. If you like today's episode, do us a favor and rate, review, and subscribe in whatever application you use to consume podcasts these days. You can reach us by visiting whydoesthewilhelmscream.com. If you are in the DFW area, we would love to see you at a Fort Worth Film Club event. You can learn more about those and find a full schedule at fortworthfilmclub.com. And you can learn about my foundation and how we are trying to foster the next generation of film lovers at realhousefoundation.org. That's REEL housefoundation.org. Till next time,